Madden 19 was far from the best Madden we've ever seen. In fact, many people consider it to be the worst, or at least one of the worst. But that doesn't mean that Madden 20 doesn't have a chance to actually be a much better game. But EA really needs to focus on the feedback that they received this year and make sure to put that into play when it comes to the next version of Madden. Now, more so than ever this year, it seems like EA has definitely been listening to feedback, taking more feedback. They patched the game, they fixed the game more than ever, and even though sometimes it wound up making the game worse, the effort was there to try to fix the problems that the community was complaining about. So, looking forward to Madden 20, I have 5 things that they absolutely need to do better than Madden 19. Now, they don't need to get these things perfect, but they need to move all of these things in the right direction so that Madden 20 is a much better experience than what we had with Madden 19. So let's first start with the biggest problem that Madden 19 had, and Madden has had as a whole for a while now, and that is the gameplay. Now, it's not just as simple as saying the gameplay needs to be better, fix the gameplay. Obviously, there's a lot that goes into this. There's a lot of legacy code in the game. There's a lot of things that honestly probably need to be redesigned. And what's interesting is the recent interview that Kraylo gave, they pretty much alluded to that's kind of starting to be a philosophy that they're taking more seriously now. Even though Rex Dixon was pushing this before he left, the new guys that came in and the guys that are there now are still kind of pushing this forward, saying, hey, instead of fixing the same thing 20 times to try to get it to work right, maybe we just need to actually redesign it so that it works right. Maybe the fact that we keep trying to fix it means that it never worked right to begin with and it needs to be redone. So hearing that those conversations are happening and that's how they're starting to look at the game definitely is a big thing for gameplay. Now, whether or not we're going to see things redesigned this year, we don't know. That might be something that might come to fruition more in terms of next gen, but these are the main things about gameplay right now that I have noticed, and I've seen the most complaints on my videos and on social media, the feedback that I've collected. These seem to be the biggest things that they need to focus on with gameplay, and if they can at least get some of these improving this year, that could be a big thing. Number one would be player movement for the gameplay. This is something they actually do a lot better in NBA Live, which is their basketball title. Even though, they're still a little bit behind 2K overall, the player movement in Live is really good, but the player movement in Madden hasn't been that good. They introduced real player motion in Madden 19, which was really good in terms of starting to start that process of making players move better, but it wasn't a complete win. They had some fails in it as well, but if they can kind of clean up the real player motion and make these players move more realistic, like an Alvin Kamara shouldn't move exactly like a Todd Gurley. Alvin Kamara is, no one should move like him. He's the most slippery guy in the league. He's a very unique style in running, and they need to start making this apparent on the field. These players need to feel different, kind of something that All Pro Football 2K8 did very well. If you used Barry Sanders on that game, nobody else in the game could move like him, and rightfully so, because no one in real life could move like him, and that needs to happen in Madden. But in terms of, talking about the gameplay, not just that, but, better O-line play is definitely needed. We've seen O-line take steps forward some years and then steps backwards other years. This year was definitely a year backwards. The targeting from the O-line and the run game and in the pass game, it's just been very bad. They need to make sure that is a big focus. Ball trajectory has been a problem in Madden for years. You can't throw proper fade routes. You can't drop the ball into a nice window because linebackers kind of just jump up in the air and snatch it because the ball trajectory is just very low. So all those things with gameplay, defensive AI, those are things that need to have a strong focus in Madden 20. If they can at least get some of these things right, or a lot better than they did in Madden 19, that'll be an improvement for the gameplay going into Madden 20. Number 2 on the list that they need to do better is franchise mode. Now, I know this one's a really touchy subject for the diehard franchise fans because we still have not seen a franchise mode anything like we had back in the PS2 days. Now, while the franchise mode was lacking for years and lost a lot of its luster, whether people want to admit it or not, Madden 19 definitely took a step in the right direction with franchise mode. Yes, it's still not what it used to be, but franchise mode actually got a lot of significant updates this year, and the narrative is always that, Ultimate Team gets updated more than franchise. That's all they're focused on. But really, starting in 19, their philosophy was we want to update all areas of the game equally. We want to make sure every game mode is getting equal attention and upgrades, and they did that in Madden 19, and that seems to be their philosophy going forward. Whether you agree or not, franchise mode definitely had some significant changes this year. They added the custom draft classes back in, which was really huge. They added a whole new player upgrading system, and even though that was kind of hit or miss with fans. Some people liked the old upgrading system better. It still was a big change for the mode. They added specific depth chart positions, which is huge for franchise, because just like in the real NFL, you have certain people that are designated as a slot guy or somebody that comes in on third down as a rush defensive tackle, and you were able to finally use that in franchise mode. Instead of having to switch these players out, they had their designated special positions. They added in the snapshot feature, things like that. They brought the captain patch back. Some of these are really small things, obviously, but the fact that they added quite a group of things for franchise this year, that was a step forward. And if they do that again this year, then franchise mode will undoubtedly be better than Madden 19, even though it's still far behind PS2 days and far behind their peers like NBA 2K. As long as they can give it the same type of love this year that they did last year, it'll still be a better version. So things they need to look at for franchise mode this year will be finally getting the Pro Bowl back, which is rumored to be coming back this year, which is great. Should have never left, but having that back will undoubtedly be better for franchise. Bringing back things like training camp, very important for a franchise mode. There's no reason to not have training camp there to help, boost up your players and get them ready for the season. Little things like position battles used to be one of the best parts of franchise mode. You have, two guys battling for the number one wide receiver or number one cornerback spot, and they would go, through training camp, through preseason, and then whoever performed better would be, the top guy on the depth chart. Little things like that make the mode better. Bring back, coaching staffs, because even if you can't get all the rights to all the coordinators, I mean, heck, just put fake coordinators in the game. People would like it, but just let them actually have an effect on, the upgrading that your team can get. Contract negotiations, better contracts, they're really bland in Madden. NBA 2K, again, does a really good job at this. Bring that back into the game, and that's something that I know franchise guys have been complaining about for a while. Take that step. Franchise was on a downward spiral for many years. Last year, it finally started going back up in the right direction. Let's continue that with Madden 20, and it'll be a much better experience than Madden 19. Number 3 on the list is the immersion of the game. Now, again, I think in the last 2 years, this has started to trend in the right direction for Madden, because the immersion in Madden for a while has been terrible, talking about post PS2 days. But the last couple of years, they've made strides in going in the right direction. Madden 18, they started adding a little bit more pre-game stuff. Madden 19, they finally added a halftime show, and they need to build on that. The thing is, I think most rational gamers understand that, okay, well, if we're trying to start putting these things back into the game and we're trying to build them out, we're not going to get it all in 1 or 2 years, but you need to make significant strides every year. So putting a halftime show back into the game last year was big, but now let's start aiming to see more of like what we saw with NFL 2K5, where you're actually, instead of just showing the scores and the stats from around the league during halftime, start putting that tech into the game where you can show replays from other games. Even though these games aren't really happening, like you're not playing the games, you should still be able to pull these replays. Add to the pregame stuff, guys warming up on the field, showing more season stats and things like that, showing, matchup battles or whatever pregame. And for God's sakes, the sideline players, like, can we just finally get real sideline players? I mean, I know a lot of people have complained about that, and for a while I was like, it's really not that big of a deal, but it is kind of getting to the point where, why can't we just have real players on the sideline with their real numbers and real names, and, just sideline interactions in general not being so bland. Things like this can really matter. And, even to throw another big thing out there, start using the ESPN branding and things like that. You have the rights to it, so why not use it? At least start integrating it slowly, put it in somewhere and use it, and then build it out over the years. But if you can do even 1 or 2 of these things, you make the immersion better, which would be better than what we have in 19 now. Number 4 on the list, kind of more of a general thing, but we need more to do in the game. That's been a big problem for Madden for a while now. There's not enough to do. The main ways to play it are some form of head-to-head, whether it be online, regular teams, or playing an ultimate team, or you have franchise mode. And then you did throw long shot in the game the last 2 years, but that's like a 6-hour playthrough and then it's done. It has no replay value. Kind of a waste of time and money for how much you played. If it would have maybe at least lasted 20 hours or something, okay, that's a little better. But 6 hours, you can run through that in the first 2 days, and then you don't touch it again. So, you have Ultimate Team, you have franchise, but let's bring career mode back, which that is the big rumor this year that is returning. I'm pretty sure it's all but confirmed at this point. That's huge. That's another really big way to play the game that this game is needed for a while. So you bring career mode back. That's cool. Think of mini games. Mini games ties into career mode. If you're going to bring career mode back, bring back mini games too, and actually have the ability to play mini games online, because sometimes you want to hop online and play Madden, but you don't want to sit there and play a 30-40 minute game. Instead, give somebody a way to play a 5 to 10 minute mini game, you know, rushing attack, you know, DB and wide receiver type drills, or just any little thing like that to just add. Anytime you could add more things to do in your game, it keeps players from being bored. It keeps them playing. So that's another thing we need. That's number 4 on the list. Definitely a way to make Madden 20 better than Madden 19. And number 5 on the list might seem like a small thing to a lot of people, but this is something that Madden has struggled with for a while too now, and that is matchmaking. The matchmaking online has not been very good, specifically more so when you talk about Ultimate Team, because they really matchmake based on tiers, right? But with Ultimate Team, the overalls of the teams matter a lot in Ultimate Team, because if you have an 85 overall team and you're getting matched up with a guy that has a 95 overall team, it is extremely hard to beat those guys, even if you are the better player. Now, just because you guys are in the same tier, maybe this guy's played, you know, more games than you, but he loses half his game, so that's why he's in a lower tier. But you might just be in that lower tier because you don't play the game as much, you're not as hardcore, but you like to get on and play it sometimes. You should still be able to be matched up with a person that has a team closer to your overall. So instead of just matchmaking by tiers, you need to heavily start considering these team overalls when matchmaking, because then if you got guys with low overall teams constantly getting matched up with these super squads, these god squads, it's really no competition, and they're not going to want to play your mode. If you want to keep these people playing your mode, match them up with people that are evenly matched teams. That way they're actually getting a good experience. So those are 5 ways that Madden 20 absolutely has to be better than Madden 19. Definitely drop your suggestions below. Check out some of these other videos right here, and as always, I will see you guys next time.